Ever wondered where laws actually come from? As a Louisiana notary, understanding the sources of law is essential to ensure your documents are legally sound. In Chapter 5 of the Fundamentals of Louisiana Notarial Law and Practice book, the text breaks down the foundations of Louisiana's legal system and why they matter to notarial practice. Let's summarize those details in this video. Louisiana's legal framework is based on two main sources of law. First is legislation. This is the most authoritative source, including the Louisiana Constitution, Civil Code, Revised Statutes, and local ordinances. These are the written laws enacted by lawmakers and serve as the foundation of legal authority. Second is custom. These are long-standing practices that develop over time and are recognized as law only when legislation is silent on the issue. However, custom cannot override or contradict existing laws. Notaries play a critical role in applying legal authority correctly. That means drafting legal instruments that must comply with legislation, being aware of local ordinances that may impact specific notarial acts, and understanding that custom can fill legal gaps but should never be relied on if legislation provides a clear rule. Understanding these authorities ensures accuracy and compliance in document preparation. The Louisiana Civil Code serves as the foundation of most notarial laws, governing property rights, contract obligations, family law, and successions. It codifies the general principles that shape how legal relationships and transactions function in the state. The Civil Code is divided into books, each addressing a major area of law, such as persons, things, property, obligations, and personal relationships. As the foundation of most notarial acts, understanding these books is essential for notaries handling legal instruments. The preliminary title of the Civil Code sets forth the fundamental principles of law, defining how laws should be interpreted and applied. It establishes key concepts such as how laws should be applied retroactively or prospectively, the hierarchy of different sources of law, and the distinction between public and private law. This book provides guidance for interpreting statutes and is fundamental for notaries when dealing with legal questions surrounding contracts, successions, and obligations. Next in the Civil Code books is Book 1 of Persons. This book governs legal status and relationships between individuals, particularly in family law. It includes laws on marriage and divorce, parentage and tutorship, emancipation, and absentees and declarations of death. Notaries often encounter Book 1 in matters such as tutorship documents, marriage contracts, and adoption-related legal instruments. Book 2 governs property law, defining different types of ownership and how property rights are acquired, transferred, or limited. Key topics include classifications of property, differentiating between immovables and movables, servitudes and usufruct, and possession and prescription. For notaries, this book is central to real estate transactions, servitude agreements, and property transfers. Book 3 details how property rights and obligations are created, transferred, or terminated. This book is foundational for notaries, as it outlines the legal structure for drafting wills, donation acts, sales, mortgages, and contracts. The final book, Book 4, addresses conflict of laws such as situations where multiple jurisdictions' laws may apply, such as marriage and divorce across state lines, determining which state's laws control a marriage or dissolution. It also covers property owned in multiple states, applying Louisiana law to real estate or assets located elsewhere, and successions of non-residents, detailing how Louisiana courts handle estates when the deceased lived out of state. For notaries handling transactions involving non-residents, cross-state property, or foreign parties, Book 4 is crucial for determining which laws apply. The Louisiana Revised Statutes, or LRS, contain laws enacted by the legislature that expand or clarify topics in the Civil Code. These statutes are divided into 56 titles, covering a broad range of topics, including corporate law, vehicle title transfers, and regulations relevant to notarial practice. Notaries frequently reference statutes related to trusts, powers of attorney, successions, and immovable property. Let's briefly touch on titles of particular importance to notaries as outlined in the chapter. Title 9, Civil Code Ancillaries. This title contains substantive laws that expand on topics found in the Louisiana Civil Code, particularly real estate contracts and successions. Key notary provisions in Title IX include the Louisiana Trust Code and statutes governing the registry of transactions involving immovables, military powers of attorney, and laws pertaining to registered limited liability partnerships. Next is Title X. Title X is Louisiana's version of the Uniform Commercial Code, or UCC, which governs commercial transactions, negotiable instruments, and security interests in movables. Provisions of importance to notaries in Title X are first, the rules on security agreements and liens. These provisions establish the guidelines for creating secured transactions on movable property. Also of importance are the legalities on negotiable instruments, in which Title X defines the legal requirements for promissory notes, checks, and other financial documents. Lastly are provisions on sales and leases of movables. These provisions provide guidance on the proper documentation of sales and lease agreements. Next is Title XII, which governs the formation and operation of business entities, including corporations, LLCs, and partnerships. Key notary provisions in Title XII include formation and incorporation, defining the notarial role in drafting and authenticating articles of incorporation and LLC operating agreements, and corporate transactions, detailing how business sales mergers and corporate resolutions must be executed in authentic form. Title XIII outlines judicial procedures and court rules that impact notarial acts, particularly in successions, property disputes, and evidence requirements. Key notary provisions in Title XIII include rules on filing and recording notarial acts, which governs the proper submission of legal documents to courts and parish clerks, and judicial review of notarial errors, which defines how improperly executed notarial acts may be challenged in court. These provisions ensure that notarial acts are properly executed and legally binding, maintaining the integrity of legal processes in Louisiana. Title XIV defines Louisiana's criminal statutes, including offenses that can apply to notaries. Key notary provisions in Title XIV are the following: forgery and fraud, which criminalizes forging signatures on notarial documents or committing fraud in public records, and unauthorized practice of law. Title 31 governs oil, gas, and mineral rights, supplementing Louisiana's property laws. Key notary provisions in Title 31 include mineral leases and royalties, which defines the legal framework for leasing land for oil and gas production, and conveyance of mineral rights, which outlines how sales and transfers of mineral interests must be documented. Title 32 covers vehicle title transfers, liens, and registration. Key notary provisions in Title 32 include vehicle title transfers, which establishes notary requirements for transferring motor vehicle ownership, and lien and security interests on vehicles, which defines how vehicle loans and lienholder claims must be notarized and recorded. Title 35 is the primary statutory authority for Louisiana notaries, governing their powers, responsibilities, and limitations. Key notary provisions in Title 35 include authority and jurisdiction, which establishes which documents notaries can draft and notarize, record-keeping and official duties, which defines the proper way to maintain a notarial register and handle public records, and penalties for notarial misconduct, which lists offenses that can result in suspension or revocation of notary commissions. Every Louisiana notary must follow the rules outlined in Title 35 to remain compliant. Title 42 covers public officers outlining their duties and responsibilities. Key notary provisions in Title 42 include duties and ethics, which provides guidance on notarial ethics and avoiding conflicts of interest, and suspension and removal, which details the process for disciplining notaries who violate state law. Notaries must uphold strict ethical standards or they risk losing their commission. And lastly, Title 44 governs the filing, storage, and retrieval of notarial records. Key notary provisions in Title 44 include recordation requirements, which defines which notarial acts must be filed with the parish recorder, and access to notarial records, which establishes rules on public access and confidentiality. We will reiterate in many videos that most notarial instruments, like property transfers, must be filed to be legally effective. Understanding these key LRS titles helps ensure that notarial acts are legally valid, properly recorded, and free from legal disputes. Aside from the Civil Code and Revised Statutes, other sources of law include the Code of Civil Procedure, which establishes procedural rules for judicial proceedings, including how lawsuits, appeals, and certain affidavits are conducted. This code is particularly relevant when a notary drafts documents that might be involved in litigation, such as successions, affidavits, and depositions. Next is the Children's Code, which contains laws related to juveniles, including adoption, parental rights, and juvenile court matters. Certain provisions directly impact notarial acts, such as requirements for consent forms, tutorships, and emancipations. Next is the Code of Evidence. This source governs what information can be presented in legal proceedings. It includes rules relevant to notaries, particularly concerning self-proving notarial instruments, witness requirements, and affidavit authenticity. And lastly is the Constitution Ancillaries. This source of law includes provisions that were part of prior Louisiana constitutions, but have been preserved as statutory law. These sections may impact the duties of public officials, including notaries, and contain rules on property rights, successions, and contract enforcement. Beyond the primary legal codes, several other sources influence notarial practice. First is jurisprudence. Unlike common law states, Louisiana jurisprudence, meaning court decisions, does not create binding legal precedent in most cases. However, decisions from the Louisiana Supreme Court hold the highest authority and can impact how laws are interpreted. Courts of appeal rulings may serve as persuasive authority, but they are not binding unless reviewed and upheld by the Supreme Court. Next is opinions of the Attorney General. The Attorney General issues advisory opinions interpreting laws as they apply to specific situations. While these opinions do not carry the force of law, they provide valuable guidance, especially in areas where statutes may be unclear. Notaries should be aware that Attorney General opinions can be cited in legal arguments but do not override statutory law. Also is the Louisiana Administrative Code. This code consists of regulations set by state agencies to implement laws. These rules govern how government agencies operate and may include procedural requirements affecting notarial acts, such as title transfers, business filings, and licensing requirements. Proper legal citation ensures that notaries reference the most authoritative sources when drafting documents. Louisiana law relies on a structured citation system, directing notaries to specific articles, statutes, and procedural rules. Understanding how to cite and apply these references is essential for accuracy and professional credibility. Since Louisiana follows a civil law system, legislation is king. Unlike common law states that rely on court precedent, Louisiana notaries must always look to written law first. Knowing how to interpret and apply these sources is essential for drafting legally sound documents. Louisiana notaries must navigate a complex legal landscape with different statutes governing property, contracts, successions, business entities, and criminal liability. Understanding where the law comes from helps ensure that every document you draft is enforceable and legally valid. By mastering the sources of law, you're building a solid foundation for success as a Louisiana notary. Ready to master civil code concepts and more on Louisiana's notarial laws? Stay ahead by deepening your knowledge of these statutes and their real-world applications. Whether you're preparing for the Louisiana Notary exam or enhancing your professional expertise, understanding these laws is crucial to your success. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more breakdowns of Louisiana notarial law and study guide chapters explained. Also, navigate to my website www.notarizedbychristy.com to check my latest courses to reinforce your learning. Have questions? Drop a comment below. Let's build your confidence in notarial practice.